it was. And there was absolutely no attempt on the ref's part to break it up. And to make matters worse, after the game, Emery is like, yeah, I told him to defend himself, I knew what I was doing. And then Holmgren, which is the Philadelphia GM...
This part made me sick, yeah.
Was commending him. He was just like, it's just guys letting off some steam. And to make it even worse...
No, it's not.
To make it even worse, Emery gets the third star of the game. Ray Emery, 756 save percentage, gets the third star of the game.
And karma has nothing to do with it either, because the next night he shows up and gets a W under his freaking ball.
I think he actually gets
a great game.
Doesn't he get a shutout? I'm pretty sure he got a shutout, actually.
Yeah, something like that.
It was just...
He should be suspended, fined.
I was sick to my stomach. I couldn't...
Holmgren is an idiot. He clearly... his favorite team of all time is clearly the 84 to 86 or whatever Philadelphia
70s, but yeah, I know what you
bullies.
mean. Yeah.
70s, yeah. So it's just like come on. It's such a joke. I can't even form proper sentences. There should be a suspension and a fine.
Should be an inquisition.
Emery has crossed so many lines in the past. In other leagues, he's crossed lines this game is not for you. Do you not understand that now?
This isn't boxing, man. I mean, it's not. This isn't the this isn't the UFC.
Go send him to the UFC. Go let the shit get kicked out of him. It's just...
it was mind-blowing. And it's just... don't get me wrong. Goalie fights can be very entertaining. That's some of the best, most entertaining stuff you're going to see in a hockey game. Like the Patrick Waugh, Chris Osgood, Tommy Salo versus Kluche, Hextall. I mean, goalie fights traditionally are very entertaining. Tons of fun.
They're traditionally very entertaining. They're also traditionally at center ice.
And both goalies are going at it. Yeah, exactly. Both goalies are like, okay, let's do this. Let's give the fans something.
Even the Price Thomas fight. They both looked at each other like, I don't want to fight, but let's
screw it. Yeah.
They didn't. There was less than 3 punches thrown.
And that was all in good fun. It was just
for the sport.
It was entertaining.
This is the point where it's not for the sport and it's not, I mean, obviously there's anger and bad blood and all that kind of stuff. But when you assault another player, when you pull, I want to say Donald Brashear, but he was the victim, right? To the stick in the back of McSorley, yeah. Yeah, so when you pull something like a McSorley, many would argue, or Bertuzzi, or now I would happily add Emery to that list, it's wrong. It's not a question of whether or not the game was moving too fast.
No, the game has no place for it. The game has no place for it.
Exactly. None of those variables are in play. It is plain wrong. And to have your coaching administration stand up for you after, I mean, obviously you back up your team in most scenarios, and we just talked about this with Colorado and Varlamov. But we have the facts. Ray Emery went out, knowingly assaulted another player against his will.
Yeah, and we can't stress that clearly enough. This wasn't a goalie fight that we were just naming. This is not a goalie fight that we've been listing off here. This is not a fight because two guys weren't fighting each other. This was one guy wailing on a defenseless opponent who absolutely had no ability to defend himself whatsoever. And it's sickening. It is absolutely sickening. And the NHL has done nothing about it. But they're handcuffed because they can't do anything about it. There is no rule in play to suspend Emery. So now the NHL is doing what really all they can do, besides acknowledge how despicable this incident was, is Bettman himself said, we're going to look at this in the offseason, and there's going to be a rule. We don't know what the rule is yet, but there's going to be a rule put into play that if this does happen again, this form of assault, this will be a long-term suspension. Not even 10, possibly 20, possibly 30 games. Hell, potentially the whole season might be lost if a player does something like this again. Because you cannot have this in the NHL. They are doing so much to try and defend the image of their game. They've worked so hard to make a very violent sport be accepted by an audience that doesn't always accept violence in their sports, to understand that this is how hockey is played, and yes, there can be violence. And as much as there is talk that no, there should no longer be fighting in the game, they should take the fighting out, no. Bullshit. Fighting is part of hockey. Just as much as a tackle in the NFL is part of football. That's just the way this sport is played. So it's very difficult to defend that position when thugs like Emery are just skating down the ice and destroying their opponents. So all the NHL can really do at this point is wash their hands of it, and in the offseason come up with some sort of a rule where if they're talking like a potential rule is if the goalie skates over center ice and the other goalie doesn't meet him in the middle, so it's not, the goalies don't go at it together. If one goalie just skates over to the other side to try and fight another goalie who, Holtby, wants nothing to do with it, then a suspension can be levied. And it's unfortunate that there's nothing in play now, but these kinds of incidents, specifically pertaining to the Emery incident, are so uncommon. Like, I don't think, I mean, Justin, you
but
might...
That's like the Avery rule, right? I mean,
Justin,
like,
have you ever... You've watched a lot of hockey. Have you ever seen anything like this in your entire life? I cannot think of a single incident where a goaltender has done something like this.
Oh, a goaltender for sure. No, I've seen players. I was going to bring up Sean Avery and the Avery rule. Players do something that there shouldn't need to be a rule for. Yeah. It happens maybe once a decade.
Are you talking about the stick waving with Brodeur?
The stick waving, yeah, in front of Martin Brodeur. Yeah. Every once in a while, a player comes along and decides to make a rule just for him. It's rare.
Decides to make a mockery of the game is what he decides to do.
And the only thing that makes Ray Emery's worse than Avery's is that he knowingly is injuring another human being. That's messed up.
Yeah,
that is like we're playing a team sport that's all about family values, friendship in the dressing room, teammates, etiquette on the ice, class. None of these things were brought out on the ice in this game, and Emery just made a joke of it. And we could even bring up Brendan Shanahan, who you and I agree is completely inconsistent and just not on top of his role. I think as best as he could be. And,
he spins his wheel of justice.
I have quotes from him here today in an article. I hate what Ray Emery did. I don't like it. I wouldn't like it if I was a teammate of his. I wouldn't like it if I was an opponent of his. And I think more important, if the rest of the caretakers of our game, the general managers, don't like it, it's important for us to say when a rule is not properly addressed in the rule book, and I don't think it is. And on that note, he says Rule 46.2 does address aggressors in a fight, but what Shanahan pointed out is that not every violation of a rule is worthy of a suspension. So to me, what that sentence says is that Emery could have been suspended, and Shanahan didn't want to have to back it up.
Which makes it even worse.
Right?
Because
I'm reading these quotes. I hate what he did. I don't like it. I wouldn't like it if I was a teammate. I wouldn't like it if I was an opponent. GMs need to stand up. I mean, blah 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 blah.
It's possible
but not every violation of a rule. Like, come on.
Well, maybe it's just
you just made a huge statement.
Maybe it's just such an isolated incident because this has never happened before with a goalie, anyways. Maybe it's just such an isolated incident that there is no what's the word I'm looking for? There's no precedent. Like, there's no way to possibly... Like, a rule has to be put into place that clearly defines, what Emery did was wrong.
Shanahan was also questioned because he suspended Ottawa's Matt Karkner last spring for a game under that rule for fighting Brian Boyle in the playoffs. But when asked about it compared to this incident, he said that incident was worse. Yeah,
I think there's a thug mentality in Philly as well. It doesn't help. Like, they really hold on to the Broad Street bully mentality really strongly. Holmgren has a lot to do with that, as does Bobby Clark. So I mean, not to say that this wouldn't have happened with another team, but Philadelphia obviously is one of the more violent and tough teams in the league. But yeah, I mean, going back to what we were saying, it's just disgusting. And Emery shouldn't be in this league. As far as I'm concerned, he shouldn't be playing in the NHL. The NHL has no room for people like him. And hopefully they will come up with a rule in the offseason that will keep something like this from ever happening again, because we're trying so hard to keep fighting in the game because it is important to be in the game. Incidents like this are not helping its image. And
That's exactly correct. Emery is going to ruin to some degree, for people who are completely against fighting, that might be a good thing. But I'm not, and you're not, and we want fighting in the NHL to
not stage fighting. Stage fighting is stupid.
Exactly.
Stage fighting has no place.
Stage fighting is stupid. Yeah, exactly.
I think to be honest with you, I was talking to a buddy about this the other day. Just like with the Emery thing, I'm saying to get rid of stage fighting altogether. If there's a stage fight, it should be a minimum 10 games for both players. And if they do that, there will be no more stage fighting. And the only fighting that you'll see is just from incidents on the ice that have to be policed and have to be regulated, and when emotions flare up, which is part of the game. And those kind of fights are natural and understandable and really could have a major impact on the game. The stage fights are the ones the league has to get rid of to help protect its image. And the assault, pretty much the blatant assault that Emery put on to Hopi the other day, is really destroying that image. I mean, how would you feel if you were at the game with your son, your 6-year-old son, and this is what he has to see? Imagine if there were kids at that game watching that. How do you explain that to your son, that that's okay to do on the ice, but not to do in real life?
Now there's a kid in a Flyers jersey looking at the glass with his jaw dropped. Thanks to Emery, there's a lot of hockey dads and moms out there giving some interesting speeches on how not to play the game of hockey. But kids nowadays should be a little more educated on the fact too, just because the youth hockey programs are doing such a great job of player safety. Putting stop signs on the back of the jerseys, all that kind of stuff. So between the good hockey parents of Canada and the youth hockey organizations out there, I'm hoping that Ray Emery doesn't cause many other Ray Emerys to enter the league. But you're 100% right. Now there's a lot of explaining that has to be done, and it's just bad for the game. It's just bad for hockey. It's brutal.
It is. I mean, it's unfortunately we wrapped the show up on such a sour note.
We're not going to show up on that. I actually, what we're going to do is, because I was just thinking that this is getting sad for NHL. We want to finish this on good notes. So
okay, what do you got?
I got a bit of a funny story. Montreal, St. Louis. I remembered. Remember, I told you. I forgot. I literally just remembered.
Excellent.
St. Louis defenseman, I think it was Shattenkirk. He's back skating. Montreal 2-on-2, and they get the puck past the net, and Montreal's so Montreal tries to recover the play behind the net and start to skate out front. Shattenkirk is skating backwards, defensively skating, and once the play is clear, he kind of stumbles over Halak's pad and bumps his own net off the moorings. Okay, so the referee in the far boards calls intentional delay of game. Okay, so this call doesn't happen very often because it's like throwing the puck over the glass.
Yeah,
players just don't do it now because they know they're going to get called. So normally when you see it, it's 100% an accident because it's plain black and white call. You do it, you get called. So players don't tend to knock the net off the moorings to delay the game anymore. So from the replay, I agree with the call. The call is that you call a power play for that, because to me the replay looked like he kind of hit the net and then he kind of threw a little elbow and a little kick to make sure it came off. So I agree with the call. However, this is something I literally learned watching this game. If the net is intentionally kicked off the moorings with the last 2 minutes of play, it's a penalty shot, not a power play.
Really?
So Montreal was awarded a penalty shot. I was furious. I wanted a power play. There was a minute and a half left in the game, and it was tied. I wanted a power play. I am sure the coach wanted a power play. I have made a case many other times as well that when a penalty shot is up for grabs, the coach should be able to elect to take a power play instead.
Who got the penalty shot? Who took the shot?
Thomas Plekanec did against Yaroslav Halak. And
did he score?
Lucky. No. Plekanec put a beautiful wrist shot on the left side. It missed Halak's blocker, but just caught the shaft of his stick. And went over the crossbar. So, and we lost in a shootout.
We lost in a shootout last night as well.
I would have loved to have that power play, and not only that, instead of the penalty shot, but not only that, I've actually said that there should be a rule in play that allows the coach to opt to take a power play. Because what if you're on a penalty kill?
Yeah, well,
I would rather have 4-on-4 hockey than take a penalty shot and go back to the penalty kill, and even if it's in the middle of a game.
We've talked about this before. Like the challenge mode.
Example, because of this net coming off the moorings in the last 2 minutes, it's an automatic penalty shot. And Halak's a great goalie. I'm sorry, but I want 5-on-4.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, the challenge rule, which they're talking about possibly next season.
That would be glorious.
What that is this potentially might.
Football.
But it potentially might happen next season. They're still discussing it. Once per game, a coach is allowed to challenge any decision that the ref makes, whatever that may be. Perfect example is last night. In overtime, the San Jose Sharks won that game. Who were they playing? It's escaping me. I want to say the Lightning, maybe. Well, regardless, it doesn't matter. They won the game last night. In overtime, the goal went over the line clearly, but because the ref couldn't see the puck, he blew the whistle down 2 seconds after the puck went in the net. He wasn't able to see that San Jose scored. So, San Jose didn't score. They ended up losing the game in overtime, and I was against Buffalo. Buffalo won the game.
I like it just because Buffalo gets a win. Yeah. That's fantastic.
And Buffalo probably hated
3-13.
Yeah, Buffalo probably hated it too, because Buffalo's probably like, no, we wanted to lose. We're going for the draft pick now. It's us and Philly going for the draft pick.
They could win like they could go 500 and they'd still be last.
Yeah, so I mean, Buffalo probably was furious that they won, or Buffalo fans were, anyways. And yeah,
God damn it, we let that in, you fools.
Yeah, San Jose clearly scored that goal. Like, it was the winner, it was the overtime winner. They were celebrating, but the ref, because he didn't see the puck, is like, well, even though the replay clearly shows the puck crossed